Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor here with Stone Payton, another episode of ATDC Radio. And Stone, you had lunch? Feeling good?
I did, man. We're hitting full stride. I just consumed a $13 Reuben, and I can't say that I'm absolutely convinced it was worth the $13, but I am at least not going to be ornery during the balance of the day. This has been a fantastic day. Of course, we knew what to expect. We've been out here before, broadcasting live for you from ATDC. This is our third episode of the day. We're kind of hitting our groove. Please join me in welcoming to the broadcast. First up on this afternoon episode, we have with us founder with W9manager, Mr. John Croyle. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, John, before we get too far into things, can you tell us about W9manager? How are you serving folks?
So W9manager is kind of like the TurboTax for W9s and 1099s. So I worked as a controller for 20 years, and W9s were always a pain in my side. So we developed a website to help companies manage that, especially at the year-end process. So our motto is that we help you complete the 1099, most of your 1099 work before the season even begins at the end of the year. So
now how are companies doing it now without your help?
So right now, companies, it's really a paper process that people have to do on a daily basis. So when you get a new vendor, you have to request a W-9. They usually email it to you through insecure means. Then you've got to try to attach that to your ERP or your accounting system. And at the end of the year, and then let me back up. A lot of those W-9s that you get in are incorrect. They don't tell you what needs to happen on them. So when you go to do your 1099 reporting at the end of the year, you have to re-request another W-9. And then at the end of every year, one of my frustrations as a controller, obviously it's during January when you have a lot of other things that you'd much rather be doing. So you're trying to close out the year, you're trying to do your books, you're trying to do your taxes, and you've got this thing that pops up that every vendor that you've spent made a payment throughout the entire year. You have to determine whether they need a 1099 form at the end of the year. So during that process,
what's the criteria of that? Like, is there a certain minimum that they have to have done business with you in order to get a 1099?
Yeah. In order to get a 1099, you have to be reportable, number one, and then you have to spend more than $600 with that vendor.
So then, if it's under $600, you don't have to. That's your discretion.
That's correct. Yep. The IRS does not. So that's actually one of the first things we would go through. We would actually look through all of our payments and knock out all the ones that were under $600.
Mm-hmm. And then, so how does W9manager help companies?
So the biggest thing that we do is we organize the entire process from start to finish. So, many people look at the 1099 process as I need a 1099, somebody to help me send out my 1099s. But really the hardest part of the process is getting the W-9 in from your vendor throughout the year and having them for every vendor. So we would always end up the year at the end of the year with 150 to 200 vendors that had no W-9 or W-9 that we couldn't find or a W-9 that wasn't correct. So what we do is we take the entire year. If you get every time you have a new vendor, you add the W-9 request into our system. We'll actually send out that request electronically to the vendor. The vendor will then log into W9manager. We'll walk them through a guided process. So it's not just a PDF. It's actually a guided process where we actually help them fill out their form completely and correctly. So that then comes back to the company, back to the accounting department. It's centrally stored. Anybody in the entire company can request it. So I actually used to work at a trade show company. And when we were at the trade show company, people would be on the trade show floor trying to get W-9s. We were trying to get them from our VIPs that attended. This allows anybody in the entire company to request a W-9, and it comes back centrally as well, comes back complete, comes back correct. Then at the end of the year, one of the biggest benefits of this, when you go into the end of the year, you've already got a W-9. There's also a link to go through. We actually have a reportability, what we call a reportability calculator behind the scenes that tell you whether it's reportable or not. So trying to determine whether somebody needs to get a W-9 or not is a process of two things. One, you have to determine the tax classification of the vendor, and that comes from the W-9 form that you now have for every vendor. And two, the type of payment that's made. Is it reportable or is it not reportable? You combine those two things together, we will tell you whether that payment is reportable, not reportable. A few things are unknown because we don't have enough information, and or another 1099 that you have to do it on. We mainly focus on the 1099 miss, which is what the majority of vendors deal with. So.
Now, what's the ramification if a company doesn't manage this properly?
So the IRS is very serious about this area, and there are penalties if the company fails to file timely, fails to include all information required on the form, includes incorrect information, reports an incorrect TIN, fails to report a TIN. I mean, there's a lot of different areas that companies can fall into an issue here. Even smaller companies, any company that has a vendor, that pays a vendor, is responsible for doing a 1099. And the penalties can be as high as $550 per 1099 that's not filed or filed incorrectly or one of these other issues with no maximum penalty.
Now, how is a vendor defined?
So I would define a vendor, typically anybody that's in an accounts payable department that you're paying through accounts payable is our primary target. So if you're cutting them a check, if they're paying them by a credit card, your accounts payable department is paying that, that would be considered a vendor. A supplier, an independent contractor, a product that you're purchasing, anything you're basically buying for your company outside of payroll.
And then if it totals more than $600 at the end of the year, then you have to do this.
Yes, you have to determine whether a 1099 is due at that point in time.
Now, what about if it's the employee is, getting Starbucks every week, and then that equals more than $600?
So that would be an easy one because products are tax exempt, and so you don't have to worry about doing a 1099 on products.
So something like that. But like Office Depot.
From an Office Depot perspective, again, it's a product that you're purchasing. So 1099s are basically around services that you purchase at that point in time. But yes, there is a potential risk that if you are reimbursing an employee for expenses and they're paying those expenses with a check or cash, then there's some potential exposure that you have to actually issue a 1099 at that point in time to whoever that vendor is that they paid. But most of the time, think about it, most of the time employees, when they pay for things, they pay for them with a credit card. So most of that's a non-issue.
So now, who is the target for this service?
So our target, we're targeting companies between 5 million and 100 to 150 million. There's some bigger competitors in the space, the Fortune 500 competitors, which really isn't our market. So we're looking at the small to medium-sized businesses, and we're approaching it from two different perspectives. One is the company, the controller, the accounts payable department, and the other one is the independent contractor. So we actually provide it free to independent contractors and vendors that want to actually just create a W9. And so they can then log in and send their W9 at any point in time that they want to do it from anywhere, from any device, and to anyone that they want to do it.
So then I'm an independent contractor. I do this, and then somebody I'm working with, they say they want me to fill out their document, and I go, I can just send them this.
Yep. You just log in, hit send on your W9. It's already done, and you send it. You know that it's complete. You know it's correct. There's a lot of issues, especially around LLCs, in which a lot of companies are doing in Georgia and in most states, where the LLC, you don't check off the box that's correct, or if you're a single member, which means you're owned by one individual, you don't actually put the single member designation as your TIN and the name. You actually put the owner of that. So there's a lot of complication. And when they're done wrong, one of the other penalties that can happen is companies can actually withhold 24%, which they call backup withholding. So if you don't give them the correct TIN and the correct name, and the IRS comes back and gives them a notification, a B notice we call it, then the company either has to get the correct TIN number and name from you, or they have to do what's called backup withholding and withhold 24% of all payments moving forward. So it behooves the independent contractor and vendor to get it right from the start.
So now, was this your first startup?
So I had so when I was younger, when I was 25, I actually bought an auto trim shop and in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we tricked out trucks. We did, I wouldn't call that necessarily a startup, but it was definitely a business. And it was, we did window tint and we did auto accessories and gold plating, all that kind of stuff. I kind of chalked it up as an unpaid internship at that point in time.
But your career's been in finance?
Yes, so I have a background I have a degree in finance, a CPA, an active CPA, and an MBA from Georgia State University. And I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car as a regional controller for many years, a very entrepreneurial, great experience. And then I worked for a couple other companies as their corporate controllers.
But this is your first venture.
So this is my first technology startup.
Right.
Yep.
So now, how has the ATDC experience been for you?
It's great. Love it so far. You know what, I like the atmosphere. I like the vibe. They have fantastic mentors. I have a mentor from here, Bob Morrell, who's been fantastic. I'm also meeting with Jackie Chu on a consistent basis, who's my ATDC catalyst, and she's a marketing expert as well. And then I'm working with Eric, I think it's Schmidt, who's on SEO side, to assist me with the SEO part as well. So it's been really helpful to me. Now,
you're the founder, right?
Yes.
So now, as a founder coming in, was it hard to build the team?
So I think so I took a shot at this a couple years ago, and I hired a team offshore, and it was a complete disaster.
So you thought, like, hey, I got this idea. I'm not a coder, so I'm just going to have someone build this thing.
If somebody build it, I just
sit back and then collect checks.
Yep. It worked out real well.
And then cut to, 2 years later, now you're here?
Yeah, a couple years later, I this time around, I actually I have a CTO, Sean Middleton, who's worked with me. He's got some equity in the company. And
so then you approach this as, now let me find a co-founder that's a technologist.
Yep.
And how difficult was that?
I think it was just working with your network, asking around, getting recommendations from people. So he was referred to me by a friend, and he and I met for lunch. And he's very passionate about business as well.
W9s.
Well, I'm not sure anybody's passionate about W9s. Even I'm not passionate. I'm passionate about them going away. I never wanted to deal with them. That was the pain I hated as a controller. So it's funny.
So then when he was brought aboard, now you have all the elements, right? You're the expert, subject matter expert. He's a technologist that can build this out. Then by coming into the ATDC ecosystem, you can kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I think one of the, I'm up in Kennesaw, so I'm a little bit, out of the loop sometimes. So I think it helps me. I think one of the things that I need is some expertise. I haven't done this before. I don't want to spend 6 months spinning my wheels on something and then realize I've done it wrong. I'd rather learn from somebody that knows and has done it right. And so I can do that and save myself a lot of pain and money and issues.
Are people out there using this yet? What stage are you at?
So we launched this about a week and a half ago. And we do have users, and so I'm actually receiving feedback, which I find very necessary, because you've built this thing, you've been in this thing yourself for, as a lot of founders will find, you have this thing, but you're thirsty, I guess as Charlie Paparelli called it. I'm thirsty for user feedback. Right. So we're starting to get that. I've been reaching out to, obviously I have a lot of accounting contacts, so we're starting to get them ramped up. I've spent a lot of time on SEO and trying to raise my organic, my search results, and I'm working on developing the SEO and all that kind of stuff. So it's been 80-hour weeks, and I still don't feel like I've done anything for a week and a half. So.
Now, the companies that are using this, are they the end user, or are you working through CPA firms to get the CPA firms to use their clients to use this?
So right now I'm reaching out to the end user. So it'd be the controller, the accounting manager, accounts payable manager, something like that. And they would be the person that would use it. So they would basically start every time they add a vendor, they would just add that vendor into the name and the email into W9manager. We then send out automatic reminders over the next 10 days. And we also provide a list of vendors that don't have a W9 or who do have a W9. So we have reporting, everything's centralized, and so they would be the target market. I think CPA firms would be a potential, they could actually promote the site. CPA firms tend to stay away from W9s. Typically the company deals with W9s.
Right, but
they assist
a way
with
to help
1099s.
in order to help their company give them what they need more efficiently.
Right. They could recommend the site to their users, the application at that point in time. One of my big pushes, right now I'm trying to just use people that I know, people in accounting that I've dealt with over the years, to help me understand it. We're trying to analyze the site, we're trying to analyze the usage, but I think long term, I think affiliate marketing, I think would be a good option for us. People that write blogs on taxes or 1099s would be very helpful. So
if somebody wanted to learn more and get a feel for this, Is the website's up and running?
It's up and running. It's at W9manager.com.
And then from there, it's kind of pretty easy to get.
Yep, we offer a 14-day free trial that gives you access to the entire site and 10 free W9s, which you can walk through the entire process of sending out requests and receiving them back and determining whether they're reportable using our reporting tools, our centralized storage. And of course, you can always send and create and send a W9 for free at any point in time.
And any independent contractor can also go there and then set up for free. Right?
Yep. And we'll walk, like I said, it's not just a PDF, it's actually a guided process. So if you key in that you are a single member LLC and walk through the steps, we'll tell you that you can't fill out a W9 as a single member LLC. You've got to fill it out as the owner. So and many other different processes. If you're an independent contractor using your Social Security number, we'll recommend that you use an EIN and not your own Social Security number, and we'll point you to the IRS website.
Right,
on how
so
to do
you're
that.
kind of catching the mistakes before they happen.
Yep, and trying to keep. Again, one of the things I'm passionate about is helping independent contractors not use their Social Security number as well. I think that's a big way that we can help keep those your Social Security numbers secure from that.
All right, good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So while you guys were talking, I was trying to calculate how many shows I have to produce before I could make $600. But I'm
got
safe
a way to go
for the day, right? Well, keep up the good work, man. Thanks for sharing your story and keep us posted. We love to follow stories like this. I know it's an exciting time for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, how about staying with us? We're going to visit with a couple more folks.
Sure.
All right, next up on ATDC Radio this afternoon, please join me in welcoming to the show founder and clinical director with TQ Intelligence, Mr. Yared Alemu. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Did you learn anything about W9s in that last segment?
Absolutely. I'm in trouble.
I can help with that.
Already non-compliant.
Well, Yared, can you share a little bit about TQ Intelligence? How are you serving folks?
So we're focused on behavioral mental health. So we're a population health management platform that tracks treatment outcomes and support healthcare providers make decisions about mental health treatment based on data.
So now, mental health, the people that you're serving, are they kind of the general population, or are you focusing on homeless people?
Yeah. So our primary focus on is at-risk youth. These are kids who are in treatment currently as part of the process in the Georgia mental health paid by the state and the federal government. So the significant majority of mental health services overall has been provided by based on public money. And so what we do is we work with the mental health providers. They will download our app. They will collect the data on a regular basis, and we provide them with a feedback in terms of whether someone is getting better or not. Are there other things they need to consider in terms of improving the quality of care?
Now, what are some of the challenges you see in this area? Because I would imagine there's a lot of landmines in this world in terms of just patient compliance and getting the outcomes that they desire, and it's just very challenging.
Yes, I mean, I've already kind of felt like I'm raising the mood in this room right here by talking about mental health. So it's a kind of the stepchild of the healthcare system. And, nobody wants to talk about mental health at home. And so it's
right.
So you have to kind of cross that first. So medicine in general, healthcare in general is struggling with data accountability and measurements.
Right.
And so that's partly a problem with lack of efficient technologies, but also you have a resistance from both the providers and the patients. So if you're an innovator in this space, you're right in the middle of these two kind of competing factions that are highly resistant in terms of change, and that's probably why you have it costs $3.4 trillion a year with very little to show for it in terms of how someone, the overall well-being of individuals who are covered by insurance. So,
and mental health is even worse.
Mental health is even worse. 60% of psychotropic medications, these are the medications for depression and anxiety, are prescribed by primary care physicians. So most people will go to their primary care physicians complaining about depression and anxiety, which is, you're going into complaining about...
right, the same guy who's treating your flu.
Exactly.
Is deciding if you're depressed or not.
Yeah, which is not a good idea. They have in general 7 minutes. So if you go to primary... So how much, what are you going to do in that 7 minutes? Are you going to talk about, your high cholesterol, or you talk about your... That's
why there's the popularity of medicinal marijuana.
Medicinal or non-medicinal, and other forms of substances that's widely available. In fact, you have a much better chance of spending a good time with your drug dealer than you do with your primary care physician. They'll give you more time. So the problem with quality is as I said, majority of these medications are prescribed by people. May not even have a one class in their medical school training that has to do with mental health. And so on top of that, mental health is a low technology ecosystem. It's just beginning to adapt the electronic medical record systems, they're a glorified billing systems. They don't do any analytics. They don't help with automation. So these are essential things to coordinate care. You cannot do that on those EMRs.
Now, isn't another challenge, especially in mental health, that it's hard to kind of get the data you need to see where there's progress because of so many privacy issues?
So more than privacy is, so if you go to your primary care physicians right now, you can tell them about you have pains and aches and somewhere. Say, let me go and take some blood and see if there is something I can be able to see. We don't have none of that in mental health.
There's no testing.
There's no, so I'm believing, or I'm a psychologist by training, so I'm relying on the person who's the least reliable, which is the patient, make decisions about treatment based on very limited information.
And they're not always the most reliable source for that information.
Absolutely. It's the type of data. It's also...
So how do you get data that you can use that you can say is, okay, this is reliable. I can really tell that this person is depressed, and not even just depressed as an on-off switch. You're either depressed or you're not. It's like, how depressed are they? Are they at 9? Sure. Are they at 2? Or are they,
we do a few things to address that. One is we use a voice recognition technology to be able to quantify and predict the severity of the mental health disorder.
By their voice?
By the voice. So
really?
we collect about a 90-second voice sample. So every time we collect other data, so if you're participating in a pilot with us, right, every 3 weeks, the therapist will spend the first 10 minutes collecting data. So they collect data using scientifically validated surveys, and we collect the data from the parents, since we're working with young people. We collect the data from the patient. We collect the data from the therapist. Because you can't just ask the therapist how the patient is doing. They'll say, everybody's doing great. I'm just the greatest therapist in the world.
Right.
And so
how many smiley faces?
Yeah, those are my colleagues. Like, we're really, we're in this business to make. So we collected from these 3 stakeholders.
But this
and then we
data
collect a 90-second.
But the data is coming from surveys they're filling out forms?
So they'll download our app. And so the therapist, the workflow is they will open it up and they have their own... so they fill out these information. It's a scientifically validated survey.
Like, what's an example of one question on the survey?
Have you been showing your behind to other people? No, I'm just kidding. These are observable questions. Like, have you... some of it has to do feelings. Did you have any conflict with somebody else? Did you... So these are 26 questions. We ask them the same questions with these 3 people. And then we collect the 90-second voice sample on the top of that.
And then that voice sample is based on them answering one of these questions?
No.
Or they're just reading something?
Free form.
So they're just asking them just to...
Yeah, so how's your week been?
And then they just talk for the period of time, and then from their tone or you're getting certain markers based on how they're speaking, the speed...
So we're building the algorithms to be able to, these machine learning algorithms to be able to not focus on content, but to use these structures, these nuances in someone's voice to be able to identify biomarkers that are indicative of emotional distress.
And then did you come up with this idea that you can use voice to do this?
No. So this is an exciting time to be in healthcare, right? So
Right.
part of that is all these startups are about to take down all this kind of big conglomerate that resist to
Everybody's
change.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So if you're in mental health innovations, the focus is how can we measure severity
Right.
objectively, right? So if you're in, there are companies that are doing that by using face recognition technology. So they see these idiosyncratic facial expressions, and based on that, they're able to kind of come up with your
So
level
that's
of.
valid too. They're using facial recognition.
Everybody's working on this. And when I say it's so different, so there are other companies, for example, using what's passive data. So you download your app into to your phone,
Right.
and they just kind of watch what your pattern is. They see what you're tweeting, see what you're doing in Facebook, and then that data becomes a way to be able to identify.
Right.
For example, if you're suicidal, so they use that to be able to kind of give a heads up to the healthcare provider saying, Joey's been actively communicating about suicide on.
Right.
So the objective data coming from someone other than the patient.
Right. But I mean, the social media is the patient. I mean, that's their patient's words.
Yeah, absolutely. But with the exception that you can sit back and watch the patterns.
Right.
Most people who engage in certain behaviors don't really see. And once you go even further than that, some of the algorithms can actually be able to predict the likelihood that you'll engage in self-harm or suicidal behavior.
Now, is this something that this is only in the healthcare kind of world right now? Is it something that eventually will go to like parents so that they can kind of monitor? Because a lot of times something bad happens to a kid and the parents are like, I didn't see this coming. This is out of the blue.
Absolutely.
But when you look back, there might have been clues.
Absolutely. So what's unique about us is we actually collect data from the parent directly. Mm-hmm. And so...
Aren't they usually the last to know?
So here is the thing. If you sit down, the kid, the parents, and the therapist, there's about 25% agreement. 75% of it is not really communicated. Everybody assumes that everybody knows.
But everybody's seeing something different?
Yeah, so you're the patient, right?
Right.
If I'm a parent, I have a different perspective about you versus if I'm a therapist.
Right.
And you also have a different perspective than these other two. So what we do is when we collect this data from parent, from the kid, and for the therapist.
When you kind of aggregate all of that.
As soon as they hit submit, we give them a feedback, right? And we highlight any differences that they have. Mm-hmm. So what we do, the therapist say, no, you don't have to wonder about what they're saying. We're already quantifying how bad the problem is for you. So why can't you use that data to be able to talk about,
and then get kind of at the crux of it, and then maybe kind of resolve some of these issues or deal with some of these issues.
Absolutely. We spend a whole lot of time on subjectivity as mental health providers with very limited data in terms of...
You're always in the gray areas.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we want to try to push it a little bit on the other side, say we can use numbers, right? We're all about measuring. Every 3 weeks, we'll give you a number, right? So, and then we have...
that way you can see progress, right?
So we hope that is a progress.
Right.
But so we mark it as 65. 65 is clinical, right? If you're up, above 65 or above, that's high risk. So what we want to see when you're in treatment is for the graph to go on downward. But also what's important is the graph to go down, all the three people have the same...
So everybody's seeing it the
patterns.
same way. Like if one person's going up and then two are going down, there's a problem.
We got a problem.
So now, how has it been for you to be kind of... You have your mental health background, but now you're also in this kind of tech world now.
Startup people are weird.
You notice that?
I mean, it's
they're all 65, right?
So I'm like one of the oldest people here, right? On the top of that, I, walked away from, stuff that I've been trained for, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
Right.
And then you come here, it's like a cult, it's everybody speaks the same way. Like, am I missing something here? So
they need you here. You've learned that, right? They need a lot of mental health help.
I close my door and I stay anonymous. So it's, the transition has been rough because I don't, the I've had like a private practice, like part-time. I was in university setting for 10 years. So coming here, and literally, like I tell people, it's like I'm getting a free MBA because it's it really is just learning the language, the system, the culture.
And the business, kind of building a business that's on technology, there are certain things like minimum viable product and customer discovery that maybe is new to you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's psychologists and scientists think about products in a very suspicious way. So, when we have a hypothesis, we rarely get to a certain place that we have some level of definitive.
Right.
So those kind of hesitations and doubts and all the stuff that's inherent in the scientific process is kind of missing on this side. Right. So the way I dealt with that is, like, for example, we have a CEO right now. So we have great CEO background in MBA. I believe in a division of labor. It's both at home and at work. It's not I'm not, the idea that I'm going to learn enough that, we'd also have a CTO. So it's make sure that we have a level of understanding and collaboration. So I learned quite a bit about this whole technology thing from a founder perspective. And so I, for about a year and a half, I kind of like, I don't like doing some of these things. So,
you discovered that pretty quickly.
There's some people I don't want to talk to, and so, but there are other stuff that get me excited. Like when I go to our pilot sites and I'm training the therapist, and I'm like educating them about how to use this data for clinical, and
because that's where the rubber hits the road, right? That's where you're seeing the impact, right?
And so let somebody else manage the other stuff.
And then so now you have a team you're happy with?
Absolutely, we have a great team.
And then for you, is your product out there in the market? So the app exists, and then and therapists are using it?
So we have 2 pilot sites, one in rural Georgia. So if you really want to be grateful about what's going on in your life, go to one of these places in the middle of, that's the treatment provider starts around Kennesaw, go all the way down to the Georgia-Tennessee border, right? We had to stop our pilots because the therapists going into places that they don't have Wi-Fi and cellular.
Right, so that's hard to use the app.
Exactly. They're also going into places that the parents cannot read, the kid cannot read.
You didn't think of that when you were developing this, huh?
I've been in this space for quite a while. And so we're going to back this thing out. So we completely stopped our pilot, brand new app, right? So the app now can be able to collect data with our Wi-Fi and cellular.
Right.
And you don't have
less
to read.
words.
And so when you have
more
see the
symbols.
question, you hit the speaker button, it reads the question for you. And we have another pilot site in the middle of the city, right? So we have 2 populations that are underserved and also suffering the consequences of poverty, which is stress, which contributes to mental health issues.
It's kind of a spiral, a downward spiral.
So we have about 8,000 patients.
Already? Wow.
Access to 8,000 patients
and that's
from
just
these 2
here
sites.
In those 2 sites?
Yeah.
There's
but we can only
many.
take like 200. It's labor intensive because we do a lot of time training. So it's not you can have a pretty, algorithm. Nobody cares about that. So what we do is we spend a lot of time on implementation, making sure that the therapists buy into the model that we have, and then training the therapists for them to train the patients to buy into this process.
And the parent. There's a lot of moving parts.
So this is where kind of, if you're in healthcare innovation, there's a lot of pretty apps out there. Right. What makes a difference is you have a system that can be able to engage patients, providers, and other stakeholders.
Are you seeing results? Are you seeing that this is making a difference?
Slow, but it's coming in. So again, part of that is because we had to stop and completely redo both our app and our web portal. And so the web portal that we have is it allows, if you're a supervisor of one of these agencies, you can sit and you have access to data that you did not have before. Right.
And that must be, so you got to build a dashboard that makes it easy for them to kind of manage.
So we were at North Georgia yesterday, and and so we're ready to go up and running because we took about 3 months or so just to come back and fix this thing and go about again.
So now, what do you need more of right now?
Money.
More money? You're running out of money? You're going to have to do get more private practice patients.
Well, that's been paying the bills. And I'm even considering setting up a little booth over there. But in this case, I'll be like Miss Cleo. Like, I'm going to predict what's going to happen to your, that's an easy way to collect money.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's your next venture. So are you looking for investors really?
No, not right now.
Not right now. So you just want to get it out there and get people using it. And
once we start have data flowing, there is some, we will have kind of data that is important if you're a payer, for example. Right now, if you're Blue Cross Blue Shield, someone sends you a claim, and you pray and you pay, right?
That's how it works.
You don't know whether that treatment actually have taken place or not, right?
So so that's good from their standpoint as well.
We addressing both the provider. I mean, this is what kind of unique, and that's what's taking quite a bit. We're addressing the provider, the mental health provider, so they can become more data driven. We're also helping the payer, so they have data to be able to sleep at night that some of these claims that coming through is actually legitimate
and working.
Yeah,
because you can tell if it's working.
Absolutely,
or not.
And we also have the patient, so the patient actually can go download our app and can go and see what's going on with their treatment.
Right.
So if you've been in treatment for 3 months and this thing is staying what it is,
then
right? You can go and ask the therapist, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
I know that you're making money.
Now, does mental health have the same kind of outcome oriented results that traditional medicine has now, where outcome is part of they're going to get paid or not if there's not the right outcome?
So this is where the nudging comes in, right? So there's like 3 things that's going on. One is competition. So if you're a health plan, right, you have to live in with the budget. So that is based on kind of the PMPI, what a cost for one patient per year. Right? If you are a healthcare provider, it has to function in that kind of value-based performance care. So if you go over that budget, right, you eat up the cost. So this is where they're kind of pushing the risk to the other side. If you come below that at that time, you and the health plan can actually share that.
Right.
So there's a lot of incentives for a lot of these organizations, whatever area it is, to be able to become more efficient. But efficient in healthcare is very different than efficient in another areas.
Like than the manufacturing line is different. Right?
Oh yeah, it's somebody else's waste and fraud is somebody else's private school tuition.
Exactly. So now this helps with that better outcomes. That helps. It seems like it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Absolutely.
And then if somebody, so your target are kind of governmental healthcare providers. Who is your target market right now?
So all the government healthcares are managed by private managed care companies.
Okay, so
if you're, for example, in Georgia, there's 4 companies. AmeriGroup is a subsidiary of Anthem, right? They're upstairs on the 10th floor. So all they did is just pass them. Yeah,
you know where they are.
I knock the doors from time to time. So it's we're not directly dealing with whether it be Medicaid or the state government. We're dealing with private companies that are tasked with managing that money.
Right. And if somebody wanted to learn more, what's the website?
It's www.tqintelligence.com.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Hey, stay with us. We got one more guest we're going to visit with, okay? All right, Lee, you ready for the headliner?
I am.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Please join me in welcoming to the show CEO with QwikCheck, Mr. Hien Ta. Good afternoon, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
Doing good. You're holding up well. You drove to get here. You don't office from here? Is that true?
That's true. Our office, so a little bit background of company. We are part of the Comcast The Farm Accelerator 2018.
Oh, so, at the Battery?
At the Battery. So
cool.
Our office is at the Battery. But obviously we joined ATDC because we see there's a potential benefits and connect with different companies. Very interesting stories, even today. So And this is our first month, so get our feet wet in this area.
All right. Well, tell us about QwikCheck. What are you doing for folks?
So QwikCheck, what we're doing is we decrease the customer wait time and improve staff productivity in retail store with our cloud-based artificial intelligence self-checkout software. In detail, it's a smart checkout solution focused on helping store operator to connect with the customer by providing a more positive shopping experience while increasing in-store sales. And we know today operators are adding more staff to expedite the checkout process. And we know speed isn't the only factors. And with the customer intelligence analytics, we're helping operators understand the customer shopping habits, then personalize and grow sales while delivering the true checkout convenience.
So now, so it's retail oriented.
Yes,
is
sir.
there a specialty? Like, is it like big retailer? Is it boutique shops? Is it like a Walmart or a Target, or is it like a small kind of boutique clothing store?
Yeah. So ideally, we would like to cover all the retailers. But with our market, when we do the market research, a lot of big companies like Walmart, Costco, or Amazon, Amazon Go, they have their own IT staff to do their personalized technology for themselves.
Right.
The outcome is the small, medium-sized company cannot compete with these guys, and that's why we see the debt of retail. But it's not. It's more the debt of the small, medium-sized companies.
Right. So that's who your target is?
Yes.
Is to help them? So now how would they implement it? Like, say I have a small retail shop, at a strip center or something. So
Yes.
how would I use QwikCheck?
So QwikCheck, we deliver QwikCheck with two different channels. The simple one is the self-checkout kiosk EMV compliance that you can place inside the store without restructure the store. It's low-cost self-checkout
is
kiosk.
It like an iPad or a tablet?
It's a tablet-based, a window tablet-based. Could be any size. Depends on what the store size.
So now, do I need a person, a sales associate to hand this to the customer, or it sits there by itself?
It will sit there by itself, and customer can just come up, scan the products, or press pay, and walk out.
Okay, so then how do I know they're not stealing?
So we also have a back screen that the cashier can see what's the customer scanning. Also, we have a algorithm to see what customers. One thing we're gonna implement is connect to the camera inside the store, so we know what product that the customer have in their hands, and when they walk to the self checkout, we know they actually scan the products or not.
So now, this happens at the end of my shopping. So I'm doing shopping, then I bring all this to the tablet, and then I scan my 5 items, and then I leave. I do my credit card, and then I leave.
Yes, and we'll notify the cashier that customer paid. It basically the back screen which get
Does
the
it
details.
print out a receipt, or it emails me a receipt or something?
Exactly, it's print out the receipts or send you through the email.
Now, is there a way that as you evolve this, can it be like my phone is an app for the store, and then I can just shop as I go, and then I leave?
Yes, and that's what I would say. The second channel is the mobile apps, which is available right now as well.
Wow.
And customers can basically, if they don't want to go through the self-checkout kiosk, they open the app, QwikCheck, scan the product, again, or order. If there's like a restaurant situation, they can order, press the order, select in the
so
menu.
it works in restaurants as well.
It works in the restaurant as well.
So I go to a restaurant, I have the app, I can place my order, it'll go to the kitchen?
Yes, go to kitchen, print it out, kitchen making it, and you just come up and
then
show your receipt.
And I can pay and leave, so I don't even have to deal with anybody.
That's correct.
Wow. So are you getting, are companies all over this? I would imagine this is very exciting for them.
Well, we basically start getting traction. Right now we have 4 retailers, 1 movie theater, and 2 restaurants signing up this week.
Are they here in Atlanta?
The 2 restaurants signing up is in the Beacon near Grand Park, called Baker Do and Buteco.
And then, so how'd you find them to do this pilot?
Your network. I think that's the reason when you asked. We were more focus on the technologies. We didn't focus on the marketing side.
Right.
So, last couple of months, I actually, boot on the ground, go to different restaurants.
Start knocking on doors.
Start knocking on doors.
Wow.
Get a lot of rejection in the beginning, but just how it goes.
So now, how has ATDC helped you? Like, you decided to be part of ATDC, even though you were at the farm.
So a couple of things. For ATDC, actually provide us some of the guidance. We work with Monique Mills. She's very focused on the retail side, the catalyst.
So she might have some contacts that can help you get in the door.
That's also as well. And also one of the perks we got from ATDC is partner with Microsoft on our cloud-based artificial intelligence. We were able to get some funding, some credits,
right.
Which is a lot for us because we will pay it ourselves.
You were paying that out of pocket, right?
Out of pocket.
So now you don't have to do that as much.
Not much at all. So we from cost perspective, it's just labor, just two developers.
That must have helped a lot, huh?
It does.
There was a lot of high-fiving when that happened.
Yeah, we
figured that out.
We went out and get a couple of beers.
Right?
Yes.
I don't have to pay that bill anymore.
No more stress.
So now you can focus in on getting more customers. Right?
Yes, and we hire a sales person to help us with go to contact with the retailers, and also spend more on marketing. See how can we spread our message a little bit more further.
Are you self-funded or do you have venture capital?
We self-funded right now. So we also look at part of ATDC is we also looking for an investor that bring this out to the mass.
Mm-hmm. So how do you go about hiring a salesperson? A lot of startups have struggle with that. You don't have a lot of money, so can you pay them a lot, or do you need somebody that's just like a commission-based only salesperson? Like, how do you find that right person to go out there?
It's through network, and basically our motto is commission-based. But you reach a certain milestone, we get some equity.
Oh wow!
So we put those numbers and encourage them to achieve that numbers, but also reward based on the equity space.
Mm-hmm. So then, was it difficult to find salespeople, or are you right in the process now?
It's difficult, yes, in the beginning, and we're still in the trial phase with this new salesperson. So,
but you went out there, right?
Oh yeah, and I went out too. So yeah,
so you know what they're going through. It's not fun. It's hard.
That's the toughest part so far.
Right.
Yes.
So now, what's been the funnest part for you?
Oh, a couple of things. But when we got that, when we wrote our software to the movie theater, also we're in the movie theater where you can order and then get to the concession to pick up your products.
Oh wow! And it's just waiting for you.
Just waiting for you, so you don't have standing line at the concession line.
It sounds like very exciting product. I mean, it seems like a lot of potential, a lot of great ways to help these retail stores differentiate themselves.
Yes, thank you. And what we aim as a company, we want to provide a small and medium-sized company a way to compete with, the Amazon, the Walmart, because as you can see, they're taking over from
more and more.
More and more.
Now, is this software as a service? Like, how did the person buy this? Do they have to buy the tablets and buy the technology and then pay a monthly fee, or how does it work?
Yes, so we provide software as a service along with the hardware, just because we think that's the best way for retailers. They don't have to go out, buy a computer and a credit card.
Right.
So we provide this as a full suite.
It's a turnkey suite.
Correct. And the price is $179 per month. They can have that.
And that's for one tablet?
Yes, it's one kiosk. Along with the mobile support.
Mm-hmm. And then so that one kiosk, that's one channel. But what if they want to use the mobile app and don't want to use a kiosk, or they have to always use the kiosk?
We didn't have that model yet. We recommend to use the kiosk along with mobile because a lot of time you see more revenues or more sale on multiple channels.
Right.
Not a lot of people, as you see, not many people like, I'm downloading another app. We walk into the store and they have a way to check out quickly.
Right.
They can use that as well.
So now on the app in the movie theater, is it possible that I can send a message that someone's making a lot of noise and they're bothering me at the movie theater on the app?
if they pay for it, we might
wanna
try
add
to do that. Yes,
put that on the roadmap. So now, what's next? You're just selling more and just getting more retailers excited about this?
yes. Our next step is marketing to get our products out to the mass, and looking for investors to help us get out quicker. But product is launched, has been launched, have been used, and also we have a roadmap next. Connect to the camera, in-store cameras to provide more security and also better solution from stealing thief of the products in the store.
Good stuff. So if a retailer wanted to learn more, what's the best way to find you guys?
We're at www.QwikCheck.com.
All right, QwikCheck.com with QWIK. Good stuff. Well, Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right. I appreciate all of our guests here today. This is Lee Cantor for Stone Payton. We will see you all next time on ATDC Radio.